Hashtag no pressure. No, what I wanted to talk about was the stuff that we talked about in New Orleans at the APBA State Association Summit, which was really, if you look at the growth projection rates in our field, whether you take it on a state-by-state basis, whether you take it in the United States or worldwide, we are on this insane trajectory, and especially in the US because we have autism insurance mandates in 50 states now since Tennessee just passed their mandate a couple months ago. The demand for behavior analytic services for this population is off the charts. And as state associations, APBA, as a trade association, the Behavior Analyst Leadership Council, I feel like we're charged with trying to help support, lead, mentor, train all of these young people, and how are we going to do it? And also, you overlay that everyone wants to start an ABA business now because there's so much work to be done and there's very few barriers to entry. So what are the answers? And that's part of why we created today.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so you combine the growth with the fact that there's low unemployment right now, and so like what are the job opportunities? And so there's so many opportunities for anybody in the field right now. So yeah, I can see why it'd be attractive to start a company too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so part of the reason that we wanted to come to Texas to do this ABA boot camp is if you look at the job demand data from the BACB and Burning Glass, where I reside, California accounts for 30% of all BCBA job demand data throughout the country, which is something that blows my mind. But Texas is not that far behind. And it was really evident today from the people that participated in the boot camp that people have a ton of energy. They know there's a need. They want to be able to serve this need. I think the intentions that they have in terms of starting their business are great, but there's just not enough resources for behavior analysts. So how do we build that capacity on a state level? Because all of us have regulations that are highly state specific, but then also in a larger national level to support all of these young business owners and even younger clinicians that are coming into the field, since the vast majority of our field is being built right now. So that means you have clinicians that are behavior analysts that are starting businesses or working in businesses with, less than 3 or 4 years clinical experience. And this is just going to average
starting a business or in a clinic director role.
Based on the projections that we saw from the BACB.
That's crazy. Starting and owning a business, running it is like a completely different skill set, a different degree
Like that wasn't part of your graduate studies, Dr. Morgan? Like, come on.
No one told me how to run a business in grad school. I learned how to do research and I learned how to do behavior analysis, clinical and experimental. I didn't learn how to run a nonprofit. That's something I'm learning on the job.
Look at the course sequences, and there's nothing in there, and there's no room because there's so much that we have to teach them to be good clinicians. There just couldn't possibly be room without turning it into a terminal PhD program.
Well, I think going back to what your question is like, how do we support them? I think we're starting to do that. So workshops like this, right? And getting them expanded, I think expanding into the podcast arena, into some different avenues to so they can contact and research and gather additional education in those different areas that they're going into. Because that's exactly what you said. That's what we did. It's like, I don't know what to do as a business owner, so I go to Google and I go find other people who are doing it well, and I ask good questions. So if we can, and I love what you guys are doing, if we can keep putting out these sort of workshops to help support, I think that's where we start, but we just need more. We need more of it.
We also need, we need feedback from the people who need that information, right? We need to know what they need to know. Specifically.
And part of the way that we curated even the topics for today is because I started doing these boot camps in California 3 years ago, and it was based off of feedback that we got at the APBA conference. And business owners, we had this panel, and I said, hey, would anyone be interested in like maybe a whole day devoted to just kind of talking about these kind of issues? And every hand in the room went up, yes. And we sold that out. And we partnered with APBA and did one in Atlanta, and now we're partnering with the BALC in APBA. And so what I'm trying to get at here is what we need to be doing is combining forces together, looking at where the need is the greatest, and then executing on what those needs are. And our content today was really based on the feedback that I've gotten from multiple boot camps looking at what the primary pain points are, and that retention and turnover is a killer for agencies. And also, how do you compete, especially for behavior analysts, in a like 100% almost full employment market for BCBAs, and then also for RBTs, because we're in this nascent phase of growth, and so we don't have all of the infrastructure in place to support the needs that companies have in terms of having those direct technicians. It's not like we don't have these like tremendous well-formed programs at the community college level, at the high school level, at a university level, where they are creating externship opportunities, that you have relationships with other businesses, and you're automatically having that pipeline of RBTs. We're having to basically source these people from the atmosphere, and then businesses are charged with training them, which is highly costly. And so then when there's a turnover event, it's really challenging for everyone, and people feel so sad about it, and they're upset about people leaving, but there's all these other competing contingencies for the RBT's time. And so picking that topic, looking at the HIPAA and compliance thing, I think, which just scares people every time we talk about that in the room, all the eyes
gets
like
so
this.
big. It's terrifying.
But we also have these responsibilities as behavior analysts. If we want to expand into behavioral health and into medicine, then we need to make sure that we're doing it in a way that really puts patient care first, and being HIPAA compliant, and understanding quality assurance and compliance related to all of your contracts, assessments is a critical piece. And the infrastructure piece, Suzanne, I mean, like, we could talk for
a whole day's workshop,
all week, probably for a month, about infrastructure development and how do you decide what to do when, how do you build these out. And I think a lot of ABA businesses are considering, what do you need to do to be able to support appropriate infrastructure, and that you have to make that a priority, and it can't simply just be top line billable hour growth.
But I also think, as we talked about today, it's not just infrastructure for our individual organizations. Part of the reason we wanted to partner with you guys and partner with CalABA and other people is because the way we're set up right now as a profession, my slide today, there's over 100 formal organizations that all have their own strategic plan, all are saying, let's go that way, which is great that somebody's doing it, but we might all be pointing in different directions. So until we start to get together and have a shared vision for where we want to go and how we're going to get there, I feel like we can't serve the people that were here to try to meet their needs the best, because we're wasting a lot of resources duplicating efforts. So I think the more we can do to collaborate, the better off we are.
Well, that's absolutely right. One of the things that Sarah and I found out at the chapter summit over the summer was that there's a lot of duplication going on across the summit, across the different chapters,
and we are resource constrained. So it's like we're duplicating efforts, yet all of us have minimal resources.
Right.
Why
So it's all based on volunteer.
Right. So we need to all come together and have mechanisms by which to communicate.
Yes.
So we can support each other and share resources versus feeling like, gosh, we're in the silo in Texas, or we're in Connecticut or California, and no one's ever experienced the things that we've experienced. But we've all experienced
We've all
the same
done it,
thing.
And then we're recreating the wheel over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So in a conversation, I don't know if I can say who I had the conversation with that, because I don't have their permission, but this didn't come from me, but somebody who's looked at similar size professions. So we're roughly 40,000 people, and you look at the infrastructure at the national or international level for how many employees they have to meet the needs for marketing, for PR, for development of really sound, deep training for people beyond basic certification. Would you like to guess how many employees they have? 20. So we need 20 now. And how many do we really have? So if we had a mothership that we all somehow collaborated with, that mothership would have 20 employees. And we don't.
And that's just for BCBAs. That's not RBTs. That's only for BCBAs.
Right.
Because RBT numbers are already over 66,000 as of October 1st.
Yeah. So to do the lobbying, to to communicate with us who are doing, national or state things, to say, here's what we've set the agenda to be for legislative action, and here are the resources we could give you. Here's the training we can give you. We don't have.
But also that was assuming a 15% growth rate. But what they've been seeing on the testing at each testing cycle is it's more like 30, 35%, 40%, which
Yeah, I
is
think
not
those
going to
numbers are-
sustain. I mean, there's going to be
Right.
at some point,
Right.
that we'll kind of crest and level out a little bit,
Yeah.
but we haven't.
We're still in the accelerating part of the
Yeah.
curve right now.
And the curve, I mean, and the trend, it's crazy, and so we were also being put in this, I think, amazing position, but also really challenging position of having to put in all of these things kind of on the back end, just to keep up with, the demand. And I don't think we are yet.
It's not just on the back end, it's on the back end and on the fly and under-resourced.
Yes. Which is why it's so important to create these collaborative relationships, because all of us acknowledge, whether you're a
Yeah.
state association, whether you're a national association, we're doing the best we can on minimal budgets, and we're trying to bootstrap it and relying a lot on, heavily taxed volunteers that also are trying to run businesses and to support all of the recipients of behavior analytic services as well. So there's 1,057 million things to do. We're
Yeah.
doing 10.
Yeah.
We have a little way.
And we're all learning how to do it.
And we're all learning how to do it separately without sharing information.
Yes, and so if nothing else, we want this to be an example of what you can do with collaboration.
Yes.
What you can do with collaboration.
Yes.
And I think what was really nice is like you guys brought like these great technical skill sets. I'd like to think that the BALC was able to bring like some nice marketing skill sets, but then
Absolutely.
look at how everything came together. And
Yeah.
the feedback that we've got from today was really positive. And that whole idea was,
Yeah.
to give people some ideas, some food for thought, some good tools. But what my concern is this needs to be, we need to extend this. And so how can we look at being more systematic about how we support the efforts of all these people that are running businesses? And it's something I'm still trying to figure out in light of the fact that we're all,
Right.
under-resourced and already doing the 10 out of 1,005,000 things that we need to.
Well, the other thing is not everyone's going to get
Right.
So how do we reach everybody that we want access to?
Right, and that's where I think, we have to be really smart about, from my perspective, I mean, there's just nothing that equals having this kind of personal interaction together, having this networking and really building those relationships, but also understanding that there's going to be competing contingencies for people.
Yes.
And so then offering both quality online content, in-person content, and then how do you interweave
How do you
those?